Goodness is not protection. It is exposure. Goodness does not elevate you. It lowers you. Goodness does not inspire loyalty. It creates dependency. Look back at your own life. Hasn't it happened to you? You tried to be the good one, the kind one, the forgiving one. And what did it get you? Respect or disappointment? Gratitude or betrayal? History is filled with bodies of the good, leaders who refused to punish, who refused to deceive, who refused to take what was necessary. They were praised as noble, right up until the day they were destroyed. Machiavelli dared to say what society still hides. Goodness is not a principle. It is a mask. Wear it when it serves you. But the moment you mistake the mask for reality, you are finished. People don't respect goodness. They exploit it. They respect strength. They obey cunning. They follow power dressed up as virtue. And today, I'll show you why goodness without strategy isn't virtue. It's suicide. Generosity is one of the most seductive traps of all. When you give, you feel powerful. You feel admired. You feel adored. People praise you. They call you noble. They cheer your name. For a moment, it seems as if you've bought loyalty, as if your kindness has secured your place. But Machiavelli strips away this illusion and shows us the darker reality. Generosity, when constant and uncontrolled, does not create loyalty. It creates dependence. And dependence turns to entitlement. And entitlement always leads to contempt. Think about it. When you give someone something once, they're grateful. When you give it twice, they're pleased. But when you give it a third, a fourth, a fifth time, they stop seeing it as generosity at all. They start to expect it. And when expectation sets in, gratitude dies. Now it's not thank you, it's why didn't you give me more? The very act that once won you admiration becomes the seed of resentment when it doesn't continue. History proves this mercilessly. Rulers who spent lavishly on games, festivals, and endless handouts were celebrated as generous in their prime. But when the treasury emptied, their subjects cursed them for failing to provide. Generosity bought them short-term love, but long-term weakness. The crowd that once adored them became the mob that demanded their heads. The problem was never that they were hated for giving. It was that they had taught their people to expect gifts forever. And no one can feed an endless appetite. The same pattern plays out in every corner of life. The employer who bends over backward to please employees with perks and favors discovers that the moment one favor is withheld, resentment boils over. The friend who is always the one paying, always the one helping, always the one saying yes, eventually learns the brutal truth. When they stop giving, they stop mattering. The partner who showers the other with gifts and indulgences discovers that affection purchased this way is fragile. When the gifts end, so does the love. Generosity creates warmth in the moment, but it rarely builds loyalty that survives the absence of generosity. Machiavelli warned that it is safer for a ruler to be seen as frugal than to be ruined by generosity. A leader who guards resources carefully may be called stingy, but he keeps the foundation of his power intact. Without wealth, without reserves, without strength, a ruler cannot command armies, cannot enforce laws, cannot secure his position. Generosity may win applause today, but it empties the coffers needed to survive tomorrow. And once survival is at risk, no amount of applause will save you. That is the cruel economics of generosity. The cost always outweighs the return if it becomes constant. People remember your failure to give far longer than they remember your generosity. They turn kindness into expectation, expectation into demand, and demand into resentment. What was once a virtue becomes a liability. The wise leader and the wise individual learns to ration generosity, to give rarely but decisively, to make generosity memorable, not routine, to give in a way that binds loyalty, not in a way that creates dependency. One calculated gift can inspire loyalty for years if it is given at the right time, under the right circumstances. But constant giving cheapens the gesture until it means nothing. You've seen this, haven't you? The parent who never says no raises children who despise them. The boss who always gives in to demands loses authority. The friend who always sacrifices ends up abandoned. Generosity feels noble, but without calculation it hollows you out. It drains your strength while teaching others to despise you for not giving more. Machiavelli's lesson is ruthless but undeniable. Generosity is a tool, not a way of life. It must be used strategically, sparingly, like a weapon drawn only when it serves survival. Endless generosity is not kindness. It is slow suicide. Better to appear miserly and endure than to give endlessly and collapse. So the next time you are tempted to give, ask yourself, is this generosity buying me loyalty, or is it buying me weakness? Will it bind someone to me, or will it teach them to expect more? Because in the economics of power, every gift has a cost. And if you cannot afford the cost, then generosity is not virtue, it is ruin. Think about the last time you tried to be the good one. Maybe you forgave someone who didn't deserve it. Maybe you gave more than you could afford to give. Maybe you told the truth when lying would have protected you. And tell me, what happened? Did the world reward you for your virtue? Or did someone quietly take advantage of it? Did they respect your kindness? Or did they push further, demanding more, testing how far they could go before you snapped? This is the trap of goodness. At first it feels noble, almost intoxicating. People cheer you, they admire you, they call you generous, merciful, honest. But slowly, almost invisibly, the applause becomes expectation. The kindness you once gave as a gift becomes something they believe they are owed. The mercy you once showed as an exception becomes something they demand as a right. The honesty you thought would build trust becomes a weapon used against you. And you find yourself drained, exposed, cornered. Not because you were bad, but because you were too good. History is merciless in proving this truth. Julius Caesar pardoned his enemies in the Roman Senate, thinking forgiveness would unify Rome. They repaid him with daggers in his chest. Richard II of England forgave the nobles who rebelled against him, hoping mercy would bring peace. They deposed him and forced him to abdicate. Their mistake was not weakness of arms, it was weakness of virtue. They believed their enemies would respect goodness. Instead, their enemies saw it as an opportunity. But you don't need to look at ancient kings to see this. You've seen it yourself. The employee who never says no at work quickly becomes invisible, carrying the weight of everyone else's tasks until they collapse. The partner who forgives endlessly doesn't inspire devotion. They invite betrayal because their forgiveness has no edge. The friend who gives without limit is celebrated until they run out, and then they are abandoned. Goodness, once seen as virtue, becomes weakness the moment it is predictable. This is the cruelty Machiavelli forces us to confront. People don't value what they cannot lose. They don't respect what they know you will always provide. Gratitude fades. Entitlement takes its place. The merciful ruler who never punishes becomes the ruler who is laughed at. The generous leader who always gives becomes the one accused of not giving enough. The honest man who bears his soul becomes the fool who made himself vulnerable. And it is always the same pattern. At first, the world praises you. Then it pushes you. then it devours you. The good are rarely defeated by evil. They are defeated by the weight of their own virtue. Machiavelli's answer was not to abandon goodness, but to use it with precision. Wear it like a mask, not like a chain. Show mercy, but only when it strengthens your position. Show generosity, but only when it buys loyalty that lasts longer than the gift itself. Show honesty, but never so much that your enemies know where to strike. Goodness, he said, must be rationed, wielded, calculated. Otherwise, it becomes your noose. And here's where it cuts deep. If you're honest with yourself, you already know this. You felt the sting of being too good. You've tasted that bitter moment when you realized your kindness wasn't appreciated, your forgiveness wasn't respected, your honesty wasn't rewarded. That is the trap. And unless you learn to master goodness instead of being mastered by it, it will happen again. The world does not reward those who are good in all things. It rewards those who know when to be good and when to be ruthless. That is Machiavelli's brutal gift to us. He doesn't tell us to be cruel. He tells us to be awake. Goodness, on its own, is not strength. It is exposure. And unless you learn to step outside the trap, you will discover, too late, that your greatest virtue was also your greatest weakness. Let me tell you something uncomfortable. The world does not care who you really are. It only cares about what you look like. You can be honest in private, kind at heart, merciful in secret, but if you do not appear that way in public, no one will believe it. And the reverse is even darker. You can be cruel, manipulative, deceitful behind closed doors, but if you project the image of goodness, people will call you virtuous. The mask matters more than the face. Think about it. Haven't you already seen this? Someone who talks endlessly about fairness, about honesty, about loyalty. Yet behind the curtain, you know they're cold and calculating. And still, people adore them. They praise the image, not the reality. That's what Machiavelli understood. Most people are not searching for truth. They are searching for reassurance. They don't want the naked, complicated reality of who you are. They want the mask. History is full of masks. Rulers who were brutal in private, but who performed mercy in public, are remembered as just. Leaders who staged generosity with grand gestures while quietly tightening their grip on power are remembered as great. Their subjects never saw the blood in the shadows, the betrayals in the council chambers, the steel behind the smile. They saw the performance, and the performance was enough. And it's the same today. People fall for images more than reality. The boss who delivers stirring speeches about teamwork is trusted, even if he crushes dissent in private. The public figure who donates publicly to a cause is called generous, even if behind the scenes they hoard power. Even in our personal lives, we know people who project loyalty while calculating advantage, who appear compassionate while masking their indifference. And what happens? They are believed. They are rewarded. They are trusted. Why? Because they understand that the mask of virtue is stronger than virtue itself. Here's the dangerous part. Many leaders begin to believe in their own performance. They put on the mask so often that they forget it is only a mask. They start to think they really are the merciful ruler, the generous leader, the honest man. And once they start believing, they make mistakes. They forgive too much. They give too much. They reveal too much. They confuse image with reality, and their enemies exploit it. That is how they fall. Not because they were bad actors, but because they started believing their own act. The survivors, the ones who endure, never forget the difference. They understand that appearances are tools, not truths. They wear the mask with precision, They smile while plotting. They speak of peace while preparing for war. They show just enough kindness to earn trust, just enough honesty to appear credible, just enough mercy to inspire loyalty. But they never let the mask slip. And more importantly, they never forget it's only a mask. That's the line between survival and ruin. Ask yourself, how many times have you believed the mask? How many times have you judged someone not by what they did, but by what they seemed to be? You probably wanted to believe them, because the mask is comforting. It tells you the world is simpler than it really is. It tells you that goodness is real, that leaders can be noble, that friends can be entirely loyal. But deep down, you know reality is harsher. You've seen it. The person who seemed kind turned out to be ruthless. The one who promised honesty lied when it mattered most. And still, you believed the mask until it was too late. That's why Machiavelli's lesson is so unsettling. He isn't just describing kings and princes, he's describing all of us. We wear masks every day. We present a version of ourselves that others want to see, not the reality of who we are. And the truth is, the mask works. People rarely question it. They want to believe it, which means the mask isn't deception. It's survival. The mask of virtue is the difference between being obeyed and being overthrown, between being trusted and being betrayed, between being remembered as a good man and forgotten as a fool. And if you want to last, in power, in leadership, even in your own relationships, you cannot afford to live without it. Mercy feels good, doesn't it? Forgiving someone gives you a sense of moral superiority. Sparing an enemy makes you feel magnanimous. Offering endless chances feels like the noble thing to do. But Machiavelli forces us to face a brutal truth. Mercy without strength is suicide. When you forgive too freely, you don't inspire loyalty, you invite rebellion. When you show too much compassion, you don't win respect, you lose authority. Mercy, if it has no edge, is nothing but weakness dressed up as virtue. Think about it in your own life. The person who keeps letting others get away with betrayal is not respected. They're pitied, or worse, despised. The boss who forgives every mistake isn't admired. People walk all over him. The friend who tolerates constant disrespect isn't loved. He's taken for granted. In every case, what starts as mercy quickly becomes permission. You're teaching others that there are no consequences, that your forgiveness is guaranteed, that they can take and take without fear of punishment. And once fear disappears, respect disappears with it. Machiavelli went further. He argued that it is safer for a ruler to be feared than loved. Love is fragile. Love is conditional. People love you when you serve their interests, when you give them what they want, when you make them feel good. But the moment you can't, that love turns to resentment. Gratitude fades. Affection evaporates. Love is loyalty on a leash. It snaps the moment someone else offers a better bargain. Fear, however, endures. People may not love the ruler they fear, but they obey him. They may grumble in private, but they think twice before crossing him. Fear is constant because it appeals to something deeper than love. It appeals to survival. But here's the nuance Machiavelli understood. Pure cruelty is a path to ruin. A tyrant who rules only through terror breeds hatred, and hatred is dangerous. People will suffer much under a harsh hand, but once they come to truly hate, they will risk everything to bring you down. That is why the art of power lies in balance. A leader must cultivate fear, but never tip it into hatred. He must be ruthless when it matters, but never cruel without reason. He must punish swiftly and decisively, but only when punishment serves the stability of the whole. Fear must be measured, precise, almost surgical. You've seen this too, even outside of politics. The teacher who is too lenient loses control of the classroom. The one who is too strict breeds rebellion. But the teacher who blends firmness with fairness, who punishes decisively when needed, but also knows when to show restraint, is the one who commands respect. The same rule applies everywhere. Respect comes from the knowledge that disobedience carries a cost, that rules are enforced, that boundaries are real. Mercy has its place, but it only works when it is rare, when it is a deliberate choice rather than a constant habit. Mercy works best when it frightens as much as it comforts, when people realize they could have been destroyed, but you chose to spare them. That kind of mercy builds loyalty because it reminds people of your power. Endless mercy, on the other hand, builds contempt because it tells people you are powerless. This is the hard edge most people refuse to accept. Fear is not the opposite of love. It is the foundation of control. Without it, no relationship, no kingdom, no empire, no company, no family can survive. People will always test limits. They will always push boundaries. If there are no consequences, chaos is inevitable. Love cannot hold order on its own. Only fear can. So yes, show mercy, but only when it strengthens you. Yes, allow yourself to be loved, but never rely on it. And when the two collide, always remember Machiavelli's warning. It is better to be feared than loved, because fear endures when love has already betrayed you. This is the part most people refuse to say out loud. Sometimes the ends really do justify the means. We've been trained to recoil from that idea, to cling to morality as if it were absolute. But Machiavelli stripped the sentimentality away and stared into the raw core of power. He asked a question that still unsettles us. If cruelty secures peace, is it still cruelty, or is it mercy on a grander scale? If deception saves lives, is it a sin or a duty? The uncomfortable answer is that outcomes often matter more than intentions, and history is written not by the virtuous, but by the victorious. Think about it. The leader who lies to secure resources may be condemned in the moment, but if that lie builds an empire, his people praise him in retrospect. The ruler who wages ruthless war is hated during his campaigns, but if the war creates stability that lasts generations, statues are built in his honor. The executive who makes brutal decisions that cost thousands their jobs is demonized today. But if the company survives and thrives for decades, he is remembered as a visionary. In each case, the means were ugly, but the ends redefined them. This is not permission to be monstrous for its own sake. Machiavelli never told leaders to be cruel, deceitful, or ruthless without reason. What he said, what makes people squirm, is that morality must bend when survival is on the line. A ruler who clings to virtue while his state collapses is not moral. He is negligent. His people do not care if he was good while they starve, while they are conquered, while they are thrown into chaos. They care that he failed them. And failure, dressed up as goodness, is still failure. You can see this tension everywhere. The parent who refuses to discipline a child because it feels cruel ends up raising someone unprepared for the world. The partner who refuses to walk away from a toxic relationship because it feels harsh prolongs suffering for both. The leader who refuses to take decisive action because it means lying, cutting, or punishing loses everything they were trying to protect. The cost of clinging to pure goodness is often far greater than the cost of dirtying your hands. Here is the paradox Machiavelli leaves us with. Goodness has its place, but only as long as it does not destroy the very foundation on which it rests. Mercy must never lead to disorder. Generosity must never lead to ruin. Honesty must never lead to exposure. If the only way to protect the state, the company, the family, or even yourself is to betray the ideals you claim to value, then Machiavelli would argue you must do it. Because what good is it to lose everything while clutching virtue like a flag in the ruins? And yet, there is another layer. The mask of virtue still matters. People want to believe their leader is moral. They want the comfort of thinking their ruler acts out of compassion, even when he does not. So the art lies in this. Act ruthlessly when you must, but cloak it in virtue. Let your punishments be justified as necessary. Let your deceptions be framed as strategy. Let your cruelty be remembered as strength. The masses will forgive the means if the ends are in their favor, and they will rewrite history to glorify you. That is legacy. Legacy is not built on purity. It is built on results. People may whisper about your lies, your cruelty, your betrayals, but if the kingdom stands strong, if the company thrives, if the family survives, your name will endure. They will call you wise. They will call you great. They will say you were good after all, because the outcome allows them to forget the methods. This is Machiavelli's final ruthless gift. Power belongs not to those who cling desperately to virtue, but to those who bend virtue into a weapon. The ends do not always justify the means, but when survival is at stake, when everything is on the line, the ends are all that matter. The weak will cling to their goodness and perish. The strong will use goodness as theater, as camouflage, as strategy, and they will be the ones remembered. So the question is no longer whether you should be good. The question is whether you can afford to be good. And if the answer is no, then you must decide. Will you have the stomach to act as Machiavelli advised? Will you wear the mask of virtue while wielding the blade of necessity? Or will you fall into the trap, clinging to goodness as the walls close in? Because in the end, history does not remember those who were good. It remembers those who lasted,